Actually, you're not being rejected. You're just a very small priority in someone else's life. If you send a connection request to someone who has no relevance to your past career, they're probably not gonna want to connect with you or accept your connection request. You have got to be sensible at what you're doing, and you have got to understand that the people that you're trying to connect with, whether they're recruiters or hiring managers or just people you want help from, they've got a day job, they've got a family. You're the least important part of their day, and a lot of people get really frustrated. They say, I'm sending lots of CVs, I'm applying for lots of jobs, I'm connecting with a lot of people, but I'm not getting any responses. So one of the first things you have to do, whether you're networking or looking for a job, is just realize that the success rate is very, very low, and become comfortable with that, and know that you have to actually talk to a lot of people before you get any success, and not get frustrated about the rejections, because actually you're not being rejected. You're just a very small priority in someone else's life.
I love that. I think like even in therapy as well, right? We talk to clients and we have a lot of people who aspire to become like entrepreneurs and businessmen, the next Steve Jobs and all that. And we remind our clients, right, that social media only amplifies that 1% of people who succeed. No one's going to tell you about how many times I failed, how many times I didn't get a job or whatever it is, right? And they look at the success stories and say, oh, that's my story, I have to have it, right? So I think I love that. It's like managing your own expectations, right? This is the reality of the situation. You only have 10 jobs, not 100 people are not going to get it right.
Right.
So I think that's actually brilliant.
I'm pretty sure that there's a high rejection rate, right? How are these people doing this? I mean, you've gone through, how are people dealing with rejection?
Yep.
Job after job after job. At some point, you have to crack,
Yep.
right? When you go, I can't do this anymore. Maybe I'm just not right for semiconductor engineering or whatever it is,
But I really like what John said just now, right? I think the fact that you said a lot of good things just then, and I think one thing that I really latched on was the fact that you getting people to change perspectives on how about this whole process about getting a job is brilliant. Like you just said this then, your job isn't to get a job. Sorry, your job is getting a job. That's your full-time profession, right? And I thought that's absolutely brilliant. And when that becomes the narrative in your head, I think that helps a lot with the rejection part, because it's not, my success isn't determined by how many callbacks I get, how many interviews I get. It's about the fact that I've done this many submissions, I've done this many interviews, for example, and that's my KPI, right? And you being rejected is just part and parcel of that new job that you have in that sense. So I actually really love that, right? And I think a lot of times it's really about perspectives. Like, me failing at a job means, okay, it's a bad fit for some people. Other people, it's the end of the world, right? It's like my dream job. I wanted to work in Google or Accenture or whatever it is, right? And I don't get it, that's it, my world crumbles. And I think there's also a lot to do with their personality as well. Some people are just naturally a bit more resilient, a bit more robust. So no matter how many rejections you get, it's still okay. It's all right for me to just bounce back. Some people, they can't, right? It's just like the end of the world, that kind of thing. So that's why I really enjoyed that, right? If you're able to change that perspective, change the narrative in your head, suddenly it's not that bad anymore. It's just part and parcel. It's just an everyday kind of thing. That's right.
Finding rewards is important as well. So the ultimate reward of job hunting is finding a job, but that might take 3 months, it might take 6 months, it might take 1,000 applications.
Right.
So you have to find a way to say, okay, my target this week is to apply for 100 relevant jobs. And if I do that, I'm going to give myself this special meal
nice.
or something else, right, and create these artificial rewards. So your goal is not getting a job, it's the actions and the tasks rather than getting a job. And that can keep you motivated when actually you do have to search for so long. And it's funny if you compare it to a sales job. My first job was selling makeup door to door.
Wait, what?
Wow.
Sorry, let's explore this slightly.
Just very casually.
Knocking on people's door, and then trying to sell them makeup. So on their home.
Look at you! I knew you were into makeup.
It's a bit strange, but it was a KPI job. So you would try and knock on 500 doors a day, and from that you would roughly work out how many doors you have to knock on to get a sale.
How do you sell makeup?
It's very hard. It's very difficult. But the key thing is to imagine, like once you've done it for a week, you know roughly how many doors you need to knock on for one sale. So if for 500 doors, you get 10 sales. So you need to knock on 50 doors to get one sale. So then every single door you knock on becomes being one step closer to getting the successful one. Whereas if you look at it as thinking, I just need to make sales, every door is a rejection, and everyone hurts. Whereas if you just think of the door as one step closer to getting that.
So you're focusing on the positive side. Is there an everyday practice that I can do with smaller things or smaller tasks to get into that mindset or a habit of focusing on the positive instead of the negative?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of times, the negatives or the failures that we have, it's just so much more accentuated, right? Because it's just so it's so devastating. It's unusual as well because like on Facebook and Instagram, you only see the positive things, right? So when suddenly there's something bad happens, it's like, oh my God, why? It's so unique, right? And it really stays in your mind. So I think honestly that whole idea about just taking 5 minutes a day and just reflecting on what you were able to do today, it's actually a really good way to just get that positivity up. So for example, I was able to drive here for this today. I have a car, I can drive, right? I was able to pay with my Touch and Go. I've got like credit left over, and that's a really good affirmation to have as well. But it's because it's so tiny, we just don't give it enough credit that we should, I think. So I think that's something that's really simple you can do on a daily basis, just to be grateful, I think. Yeah.
Does it change? I mean, with different people from different age groups. Are people more positive generally if they're in their 20s compared to their 30s who have families and they're worried about having to pay the bills and they have to pay for the kids' education and they have the wife to and the in-laws and say, how come you lost a job? It's stuff like that. There's a lot on the line here.
And also like the divorce rates as well.
Yes,
up, and
exactly.
it happens between that age group as well. Yeah.
So does it change from group to group?
It does. Actually, biologically speaking, right? So we're talking about younger. I'm going to go back a bit further. So people in their teenage years, so it'll be about 16 to about 20, 23, 24, right? Their brains are still developing, right? So that's why in that age population, you see a lot more risk takers, a lot of like jackassery kind of thing, like that kind of stuff that they do, right? And because naturally their brains are developing to a point, they're trying to get to a point where they're able to make more rational, more concerted efforts to be, calm and do the right thing, so to speak. At that age, that's why there's so many more risk takers. That's why drinking is so much more prevalent at that age group, for example, and all that kind of things, right? So if you put an 18 to 19-year-old in this situation right now, they're like, it's another day, it's Friday, right? I just go and do whatever I need to do. Compare it to a 30-year-old, 40-year-old who's got a family, who's got obligations and responsibilities, then obviously that ramps up. So not only is it a social kind of pressure that you put on yourself, but biologically as well, it does have a difference.
Because I keep thinking about, what's that Will Smith movie where he kept trying to get a job and he Pursuit of Happiness, which is the worst title for a movie ever because there's no happiness in that movie at all until the very end, right?
I could not watch the show, man. I watched it once.
At the point where you think it can't get any worse, it does get worse, right? And it's sort of like that right now because I love the fact that you give yourself a time frame and go at it and be mentally prepared. It's like sales. Not everybody's ready for sales because they already lost a job. It's a psychological hit. What I've worked for, and I'm like, telling everybody, hey, look, I got a job as a flight attendant or whatever it is, and I lose a job. Now, you're supposed to go out there, get another job, and it's not happening. First month, second month, third month. Right. You still need to eat. Yeah. Most of these people have no savings. Yeah. How do you mentally prepare for that? What do they do?
It's funny when you go into sales roles, very hardcore sales roles, you're specifically told to watch Pursuit of Happiness, The Boiler Room, Wolf of Wall Street, all these films about people starting from nothing and working their butts off and eventually succeeding.
At some point, you are going to spend the night in the toilet. Right? That's the only part of the movie I remember.
Wolf of Wall Street?
Exactly, Jeez.
But it is about motivation and it is about perspective. And if you focus on the end goal of getting a job, you're going to be disappointed with every rejection along the way. Whereas if you focus on each individual task one at a time with rewards along the way, it helps keep you focused, it helps keep you motivated. It doesn't necessarily help with the problem you said about not being able to feed your family. But it gives you a direction.
But it's a real problem though.
It is a real problem.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where the government stimulus is that help feed more cash flow into households.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Glad you liked it. Now, if you want to check out a full discussion on all our other episodes, click right here. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.